In this video, I will show you how to replace the Clockspring in a 4th generation Kia Sportage. The Clockspring is an essential component located behind the steering wheel. It allows the steering wheel to turn while still maintaining electrical connections for important systems like the driver airbag, horn, and steering wheel controls. When the Clockspring starts to fail, you may notice warning signs such as an airbag light on the dashboard, a horn that stops working, or steering wheel buttons that no longer respond. To replace the Clockspring, we will first have to remove the steering wheel and the driver airbag module. The first step is to remove the steering column cover, which gives us access to the components behind the steering wheel. The steering column cover is made up of two separate pieces, an upper cover and a lower cover. The lower cover cannot be removed without removing the upper cover first. The upper steering column cover is held in place only by plastic clips. From the backside of the cover, gently pull it straight upward until all the clips release. Then lift the upper cover up and set it aside. With the upper cover removed, you will see two screws at the front of the lower steering column cover, one on the top left and one on the top right. These screws are partially blocked by the steering wheel, so we need to rotate the wheel to access them. Start the engine so the steering wheel can turn freely. Turn the steering wheel slightly to the left and remove the left screw using a Phillips head screwdriver. Then turn the steering wheel to the right and remove the screw on the right side. After removing both the screws, move the steering wheel back to the center position so the front wheels are pointing straight ahead. This is important to keep the steering wheel and Clockspring aligned during reassembly. Once the wheels are straight, turn off the engine. Before moving on, disconnect the negative battery terminal. This part is extremely important because the next part of the job involves removing the driver airbag. Disconnecting the battery helps prevent accidental airbag deployment and reduces the risk of serious injury. Once the battery is disconnected, wait at least 10 minutes. This allows any residual electrical charge in the airbag system to fully discharge. Do not skip this waiting period. It's a critical safety step whenever you are working around airbag components. Now move underneath the steering column and remove the single screw located at the bottom of the lower cover. With all three screws removed, gently pull the lower steering column cover downward. You will notice it catches onto the steering wheel adjustment lever, so move the lever down to the unlocked position to give yourself more room. At this point, the cover may still feel stuck because it's tucked behind the lower dashboard panel. Tilt the steering wheel fully upward to create extra clearance. Then carefully squeeze the top edges of the cover and slide it out of the dashboard. Set it aside somewhere safe. Next, lock the steering wheel to prevent it from moving around during airbag removal. With the cover removed, you can now see the Clockspring mounted on the steering column, directly behind the steering wheel. But it cannot be removed yet. The steering wheel and the driver airbag module are still in the way, and you must remove them before you can access the Clockspring. The driver airbag module is secured to the steering wheel by 3 retaining clips, one on the left side, one on the right side, and one at the bottom. Release the bottom clip first. Look under the steering wheel and you will see a hole right under the airbag module. Insert a Phillips head screwdriver in this hole and gently press inward on the plastic retaining tab until the clip releases. You will feel the airbag loosen slightly at the bottom end. Next, move to the left side clip. Through the opening on the back of the steering wheel, you will see a small metal bar sitting over a metal tab. Insert a flathead screwdriver or a similar tool like this pick tool and push the bar inward toward the center of the steering wheel. Once it releases, you will feel the airbag module loosen slightly on that side as well. Now repeat the same process on the right side. Locate the metal round bar, insert your pick tool through the access hole and press inward until the clip disengages. With all 3 clips released, the airbag module will be free. You can now carefully pull the airbag module away from the steering wheel. Do this slowly because the module is still connected by electrical wiring at the back. Before the airbag can be fully removed, the electrical connectors must be disconnected. There are 2 connectors attached to the rear of the module. The first connector is the white plug with black wiring, which is for the horn. To remove it, simply hold the connector and pull it straight out from its terminal. The second connector is the yellow connector located in the center, and this one is for the airbag. This connector uses a safety lock. You will see 2 small tabs, one on each side. Lift both of these tabs at the same time, then gently pull the connector straight out. Do not twist or force it. Once both connectors are unplugged, the airbag module is completely free from the steering wheel. Turn the module over and you will be able to clearly see the 3 retaining clips on the back side that were holding it in place earlier. For safety, always set the airbag module face up on a flat, stable surface. Placing it this way reduces the risk of injury or damage in the unlikely event of accidental deployment. With the airbag out of the way, you can now clearly see the center bolt of the steering wheel. This is a 21mm bolt and it holds the steering wheel securely to the steering column. To remove it, you will need a 21mm socket. However, before loosening the bolt, first disconnect the wiring. You will see the wiring harness is secured to the steering wheel with just one screw. Remove it using a Phillips head screwdriver to release the wiring. Next, unplug the main wiring harness for the steering wheel buttons from the clock spring behind the wheel. Press the release tab on the side of the connector, then pull it straight out to disconnect it. Now we can remove the central retaining bolt that holds the steering wheel in place. This bolt sits very tight because it has thread locker upright from the factory, so it can be difficult to loosen. Instead of using a ratchet, I will be using a lug nut wrench for better leverage. The good thing is that this bolt is 21mm, which is the same size as the lug nuts on the Sportage, so the same lug nut wrench fits perfectly. Before applying force, make sure the steering wheel is firmly supported. You can hold the steering wheel tightly with your knees or have someone else hold it for you. This helps prevent unnecessary strain on the electronic steering column lock. Apply steady, controlled pressure in the counterclockwise direction. It might take a good bit of force to break that thread locker seal, but once it pops loose, it will turn much easier. As you can see, the bolt has thread locker upright from the factory. That is why it was so hard to remove. Before pulling the steering wheel off, there's one very important step you should not skip: marking its position. Why? Because the steering wheel sits on splines and those splines allow it to be installed in multiple positions. If you do not mark it now, it's really easy to put it back on slightly rotated and suddenly your wheel is crooked when you are driving perfectly straight down the road. Take a marker and draw multiple reference lines across both the steering wheel shaft and the steering wheel frame. Start the line on the metal shaft and continue onto the inner metal frame of the steering wheel. This will help you line everything up exactly the same during reassembly. I almost forgot, you have to separate these two wires, the wires for the airbag and the horn, before removing the steering wheel. Once the marks are in place, hold the steering wheel firmly with both hands and pull it straight towards you. The wheel should slide off the shaft without much effort. As you are pulling it free, be extra careful with the airbag wiring harness. Guide it gently through the opening in the back of the steering wheel. Set the steering wheel aside somewhere safe. With the steering wheel removed, you now have full access to the clock spring mounted on the steering column. Under the clock spring, you will find two electrical connectors that must be disconnected before the clock spring can be removed. One is a yellow connector and the other is a white connector. Let's start with the yellow connector. This is the airbag circuit connector, so it uses a safety locking mechanism to prevent accidental disconnection. Look closely and you will see a small locking tab on the connector. Slide this lock backward first to unlock it, then gently pull the connector straight out. Do not pull on the wires to avoid damage. Next, move to the white connector. This one is much simpler and does not have a secondary lock. Press the small release tab on the side of the connector, then pull it straight out to disconnect it. Once both connectors are unplugged, the clock spring is ready to be removed. The clock spring is secured to the steering column by 3 plastic clips only, 2 at the bottom corners and 1 at the top. The bottom clips can be unclipped easily by hand. However, you may have to use a flathead screwdriver to release the top clip. Start by releasing the 2 bottom clips first. Each bottom corner has a small tab. Gently pull these tabs downward and you will feel the lower portion of the clock spring begin to loosen from the steering column. Once the bottom clips are released, move to the top clip. This one is slightly tighter and easier to release using a flathead screwdriver. Carefully insert the screwdriver under the top clip and gently pry it upward until it disengages. After all 3 clips are released, hold the clock spring and pull it straight off the steering column. Here is a close-up view of the clock spring. You can see the part number printed on the housing. Keep in mind that this part number may be different depending on the model year, trim level, or steering wheel features of your vehicle, such as heated steering wheel or additional control buttons. When buying a replacement, it's always a good idea to match the part number from your original clock spring or confirm compatibility with your vehicle identification number to ensure the correct fit. Before reinstalling your new clock spring, it's very important to make sure it is in the neutral centered position. A new clock spring comes pre-centered in the box, but there's a simple way to double check and confirm this. There's a built-in visual check to make sure the clock spring is in its neutral centered position. On the clock spring housing, look for a small transparent inspection window located around the 10 o'clock area. This is called the neutral check window. When the clock spring is correctly centered, you should be able to see the white ribbon cable clearly through this window. If the white cable is not visible, it means the clock spring is off center. To adjust it, slowly and gently turn the clock spring until the white cable appears in the window. Take your time and do not force it. The clock spring only has a limited number of turns, and forcing it can permanently damage the internal ribbon cable. Once the white ribbon cable is fully visible through the neutral check window, the clock spring is properly centered and ready for reinstallation. Also, make sure the front wheels are still pointing straight ahead and you have not rotated the front wheels too much while removing the steering wheel. Next, carefully align the new clock spring with the mounting points on the steering column. Make sure the tabs on the bottom and top line up with their respective slots. Slide the clock spring straight onto the column until all 3 clips snap into place. Next, reconnect the 2 electrical connectors underneath the clock spring. Push each connector straight in until you hear a firm click. Double check that the clock spring has not rotated during installation and that it sits flush and firmly against the steering column. With the clock spring fully installed and all connectors secure, it's time to reinstall the steering wheel. Take your steering wheel and carefully guide the airbag wiring harness straight through the center opening. Next, line up the steering wheel splines with the shaft and match it perfectly with those reference marks you made earlier. Now before you push it on, look for these 2 plastic dowel pins on the clock spring. They need to seat perfectly into the holes on the back of the wheel. If they do not line up, you can give the clock spring a little turn until they line up with the holes. Once aligned, push the steering wheel straight onto the shaft until it is fully seated. Now double check those reference marks. The lines on the shaft and the wheel frame have to match up perfectly. If they are even slightly off, pull the steering wheel back off and reseat it. These extra few seconds now save you from crooked steering wheel down the road. Now let's get that center bolt back in. Start by threading it in by hand just to make sure it is not cross-threading. It is highly recommended to apply a little bit of medium strength thread locker before you reinstall it. Once the bolt is started by hand, grab your 21mm socket and ratchet and tighten it down to seat it fully against the steering wheel frame. With the bolt fully seated, it is time to torque it down properly with a torque wrench. The recommended tightening torque for the steering wheel bolt is between 44.1 and 49 Nm, or about 32.5 to 36.2 pound-feet of torque. Next, plug in that main electrical connector to the clock spring. Push it straight in until you hear or feel that satisfying click. Now bundle up those airbag and horn wiring harnesses and secure them to the steering wheel with a single screw you took out earlier. With the wiring secure, it is time to reinstall the airbag module. Grab the airbag module and bring it close to the steering wheel. Reconnect that yellow airbag connector. Push it in carefully until it clicks. Then slide the horn connector onto its terminal until it is fully seated. With both the connectors secure, position the airbag into the steering wheel. Line up those 3 retaining clips on the back with their mounting points and press it down until each one locks into place. Airbag done, it's time to reinstall the steering column cover. Slide the lower cover back into position carefully, making sure it hugs the column and adjustment lever just right. Once aligned, pop in that bottom screw underneath to lock it down. Next, reconnect the negative battery terminal. Then fire up the engine. With the motor running, turn the wheel left to reinstall the left upper screw on the steering column. Then swing the steering wheel to the right and reinstall that screw as well. With all 3 screws in, snap on the upper steering column cover. Line up the plastic clips, then press evenly until the cover is fully seated. Finally, take your vehicle for a test drive. Check that the steering wheel stays perfectly centered going straight, turns smooth both ways, and all steering wheel functions work. Audio controls, cruise control, and horn. Also, make sure the airbag warning light stays off in the instrument cluster. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and subscribe to WheezGen for more DIY car repair videos. Thanks for watching.